Hello and welcome. Today we journey back in time to the dawn of the 20th century, a period marked by rapid change and unprecedented growth. Imagine a world on the edge of change, a world where empires still sprawled across continents, where the sun never set on the British Empire. It was a time of both grandeur and underlying tension. Yet beneath this veneer of grandeur, tensions simmered. The streets of Europe were filled with a sense of unease, as political and social unrest began to bubble to the surface. Europe, a tapestry of proud nations, was a powder keg waiting for a spark. The intricate web of alliances and rivalries created a fragile balance. Nationalism, a fierce pride in one's country, surged through Europe. This fervent patriotism often led to a dangerous sense of superiority and a desire for dominance. Nations competed for power, land, and resources, their ambitions clashing like swords. The race for colonies and the desire for military supremacy only heightened the tensions. Old rivalries festered, particularly between Germany, a rising industrial giant, and Great Britain, the established world power. The competition between these two nations was intense and unrelenting. Fear and suspicion poisoned the air. Diplomatic relations were strained, and trust was in short supply. To protect themselves, nations formed alliances, pledging to defend each other in case of attack. These alliances were meant to create a sense of security, but they also created a complex web of obligations. It was like a dangerous game of chess, with each move raising the stakes. Every decision had the potential to tip the balance and ignite conflict. On one side stood the Central Powers, led by Germany and Austria-Hungary. Their military strength and strategic positions made them formidable opponents. On the other side stood the Allied powers, spearheaded by France, Russia, and Great Britain. These nations were united by their shared interests and mutual defense agreements. Little did they know that these alliances, meant to prevent war, would instead drag them all into the abyss. The very agreements designed to maintain peace would become the chains that bound them to conflict. Join me as we delve into the events that would plunge the world into the chaos of the First World War. Together, we will explore the causes, the battles, and the profound impact of this devastating conflict. The year was 1914, a time when Europe was a complex web of alliances and rivalries. The place, Sarajevo, a city glittering on the edge of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, was a melting pot of cultures and tensions. It was a hot summer day when Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, arrived with his wife Sophie for what was supposed to be a routine visit. Their visit was meant to be a display of power and unity, a symbol of the empire's strength, but it would end in tragedy. As their motorcade wound through the crowded streets, a young Serbian nationalist, Gavrilo Princip, saw his chance to make a statement. Fueled by anger over Austria-Hungary's control of Serbian territories, Princip fired his pistol, striking the Archduke and his wife, ending their lives in an instant. The shots echoed through Sarajevo, their reverberations felt across Europe, shaking the very foundations of peace. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand was the spark that ignited the powder keg, setting off a chain reaction. Austria-Hungary, outraged and seeking retribution, blamed Serbia and issued a harsh ultimatum, demanding compliance. Backed by Germany, they demanded Serbia's complete submission, leaving little room for negotiation. Serbia, however, sought the support of its powerful ally, Russia, hoping to counterbalance Austria-Hungary's demands. Diplomacy faltered, and within weeks, the intricate web of alliances that had kept the peace for decades snapped under the strain. Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia, and the great powers, bound by their promises and treaties, mobilized their armies, preparing for a conflict of unprecedented scale. Germany, fearing a two-front war, launched its plan of attack. First, a swift knockout blow against France in the west, then a turn to face Russia in the east, hoping to avoid being encircled. The world watched in disbelief as Europe, seemingly so civilized, so advanced, marched towards self-destruction, plunging into what would become one of the deadliest conflicts in human history. With the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the intricate web of alliances, years in the making, began to unravel. Germany, bound by its treaty with Austria-Hungary, pledged its support. Russia, feeling a kinship with Serbia, mobilized its vast army. Germany, fearing a two-front war against France in the west and Russia in the east, launched a daring plan, the Schleifen Plan, This strategy aimed to knock France out of the war quickly by sweeping through neutral Belgium, then turning to face the lumbering Russian bear in the east. However, Belgium, a small nation with a strong sense of neutrality, resisted the German advance. This act of defiance, though small, bought precious time for France and Britain to mobilize their forces. Britain, bound by its agreement to defend Belgium's neutrality, declared war on Germany. The Ottoman Empire, sensing an opportunity to regain lost glory, joined the Central Powers, while Japan, eager to expand its influence in Asia, sided with the Allies. Italy, initially neutral, joined the Allied side in 1915, enticed by promises of territorial gains. The world was now fully engulfed in war. It was a clash of empires, a global conflict the likes of which the world had never seen. Section 4. Trenches of Despair, a new kind of warfare. As armies clashed on the battlefields of Europe, a new and terrifying form of warfare emerged: trench warfare. Stretching for hundreds of miles across France and Belgium, the trenches became a nightmarish world of mud, blood, and barbed wire. Imagine, if you will, a narrow, zigzagging ditch dug deep into the earth. This was the front line, a desolate and dangerous world where soldiers lived and fought. Above them, sandbags were piled high, offering meager protection from the relentless enemy fire. The space between the opposing trenches, known as no man's land, was a desolate wasteland, churned and scarred by artillery fire. To cross this treacherous ground was to invite certain death from machine guns, snipers, and artillery shells. Life in the trenches was a living hell. Soldiers endured constant shelling, machine gun fire, and the ever-present threat of sniper attacks. They faced disease, rats, lice, and the psychological strain of constant fear and uncertainty. Yet, despite the horrors, they fought on, bound by duty, comradeship, and a sliver of hope for victory. Section 5. Bloodbath at the Somme. A battle of attrition. The Battle of the Somme, which began on July 1, 1916, remains one of the bloodiest battles in human history. It was a confrontation that epitomized the horrors of World War I, a conflict that would forever change the landscape of warfare and the lives of millions. It was a prime example of attrition warfare, where the goal was to bleed the enemy dry, to inflict more casualties than they could sustain. The strategy was simple, yet devastating. Wear down the enemy through continuous losses, hoping to break their will to fight. For weeks, British artillery bombarded the German lines, hoping to shatter their defenses and pave the way for an infantry advance. The relentless shelling was intended to destroy barbed wire, trenches and bunkers, making it easier for the infantry to move forward. At 7:30 a.m. on that fateful morning, British troops climbed out of their trenches and advanced towards the German lines. They moved forward with a sense of duty and determination, unaware of the horrors that awaited them. What they met, however, was not a broken enemy, but a storm of machine gun fire and artillery shells. The German defenses were far from shattered. They were well prepared and waiting, their machine guns mowing down the advancing British soldiers with ruthless efficiency. The German defenses held firm, and the British attack faltered, mowed down in no man's land. The landscape between the opposing trenches became a killing field, littered with the bodies of brave soldiers who had ventured into the deadly expanse. By the end of the first day, the British Army had suffered over 57,000 casualties, making it the bloodiest day in British military history. The scale of the loss was staggering, a grim testament to the ferocity of the battle and the resilience of the German defenses. The battle raged on for months, a brutal back-and-forth struggle for every yard of mud. Soldiers on both sides endured unimaginable hardships, fighting in the cold, wet and mud-filled trenches, with death and injury a constant presence. When the fighting finally ended in November, over 1 million soldiers had been killed or wounded, and the front line had moved only a few miles. The cost in human lives was immense, and the gains were minimal, highlighting the senselessness of the conflict. The Battle of the Somme became a symbol of the futility and brutality of trench warfare, a stark reminder of the human cost of this global conflict. It stands as a poignant example of the devastating impact of war, a lesson in the importance of striving for peace and understanding in a world too often torn apart by violence. Section 6. Verdun, the Devil's Cauldron. While the Battle of the Somme raged in the north, Another horrific battle unfolded in the south, near the French city of Verdun. Here, in February 1916, the German army launched a massive offensive, aiming to break the French army and win the war. Verdun, with its historical and symbolic significance, became a battle of attrition, a grinding struggle for survival. The Germans, under the command of General Erich von Falkenhayn, believed that by attacking Verdun, they could bleed the French army white. "They shall not pass," became the rallying cry of the French defenders. For months the battle raged, a relentless exchange of artillery fire, infantry assaults, and counterattacks. The landscape around Verdun was transformed into a desolate wasteland, nicknamed the Devil's Cauldron. The air was thick with the stench of death, the ground littered with the bodies of the fallen. Despite suffering heavy casualties, the French defenders held on, their resolve unbroken. By December 1916, the German offensive had been halted, but at a terrible cost. Verdun, like the Somme, became a symbol of the horrors of war, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable suffering.